Good evening, everybody. You're welcome to the September edition of our ACAIN workshops. I'm really excited about the topic we're discussing tonight. I'm going to go straight to the introduction of our speaker tonight, right? And the title of the workshop today is Getting Children to Love Books. Getting Children to Love Books. Our speaker is Mrs. Kimberley Ajayi-Bembe. I'm just going to welcome her and say, please carry on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight?
Good evening. I'm good.
You're all good? All right, fantastic. So obviously with my introduction, my focus is on early years education. And with early years education, we need to work on building a foundation. And it's those foundational skills that takes a child into their teenage and their adult years. Okay, so can I share my screen? I'll start doing my presentation. Is that okay? Okay, I hope you can all see my presentation, yeah?
Yes, that's
great. Perfect, thank you. So as I said, it's early years foundation. I'm going to, it's one thing to talk about how to get children to love books, but what I'm going to talk about as well is the importance and the developmental impact that books can have on a child as well. So we're going to look a bit into that before we get into the how and how to do it. Okay. Okay, so as I said earlier, is the basis and the foundation in which the rest of the child's life is built. So it's important to create an environment that fosters good health, a positive disposition to learning, and a positive self-image, which gives good social skills and a good balance between dependence and interdependence. So in our curriculum, one of the main focuses is the communication language, and communication language is what builds on the foundation of literacies, which is where books come into it. So main focus on communication language is verbal and non-verbal communication, which plays a significant role in developing a child's personal, social, and emotional development. So everything has like a knock-on effect into all their developmental needs. So the importance of children's books, importance of books to a child's development. So we're going to delve into the why. Why are books so important? So when given a child time and their full attention, and your full attention when reading them a story, lets the child know that they matter, that they're important, because you're dedicating that specific time to them. Now, we'll go into the benefits. What are the benefits of reading with your child? Because as much as most of us will be parents, but, as illustrators and authors, you want the parents to buy the book. So a few things you'll pick up from this session is how to advise parents who buy the books for your children. Because a lot of them will say, oh, my child doesn't like to read. We'll go into that a little bit later on. So basically the benefits of reading. So it fosters a love, reading with your child fosters a love for reading, and it nurtures a love of language and literacy. It also strengthens relationships with your child and creates a bond. And it also develops new knowledge within your child. So the importance of books to a child's development. So basically reading books helps build a child's self-esteem. It gives them confidence. It also helps build on their vocabulary as well. It also feeds into their imagination. Children need to be creative. As adults, you guys are authors, you're illustrators, you have that creativity, and that when you have that foundation, it builds on it. So you need to feed into their imagination as well. Also, children absorb more information better when it's read in print. It also builds on their social development as well and develops their thinking skills. So in a way, you know, you guys with being your illustrators and your authors, you're also educators as well, because you're helping a child develop these fundamental skills. So we're going to have a little question time. So I would like some participant. We can watch the chat or you can unmute yourself. So it's a little quiz on the impact and how children have, how many children are read to. So at what age will children start to develop a love for books? So at what age do you think a child will be when that love for books will start to be developed? So have a think about it. You can unmute and say, or you can go to the chat. So how young will a child be when they'll start developing a love for books? Irene's thinking.
So I will hazard a guess. So,
please go ahead.
5?
5 years? Okay, possibly. Anybody else?
The please time.
Anybody else want to have a go? Nope, everybody quiet. You're thinking too much. All right, so children will start develop a love for books as early as 6 to 9 months. So 6 to 9 months, a child will still start develop a love for books, because it's important to start reading to them from when they're newborn. And that's when they start developing, they start learning that books exist and so on. So we'll go to the next question. Oh, we've got some chat. Okay, 3. Okay, so some people say 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, so 6 to 9 months. Yep. 6 to 9 months, as young as 6 to 9 months, children can start developing that love for books. So what percentage of parents read to their children every day? So what percentage of parents do you think read to their child every single day? Oh, less than 5%. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Chigozie.
I'll be kinder. I'll say maybe 10%.
10%. Okay. All right. 10%. Oh, Isokin says 10%. All right. So actually, I thought this number was quite low, but from what you guys have said, this number is quite high, but I thought it was quite low. So only 50% read to children every single day. Now, if we think about the massive developmental progress that reading to your child has on them, you know, this number is quite low, isn't it? You know, so anyway, we'll go on to a couple of different facts. So what percentage of parents, so we know 50% read every single day. So what percentage of parents read to their child a few times a week? So we know it's going to be more than 5% or 10%, right? Because if every day is 50%. Okay, Chigozie said 75%. Okay. 80%. Irene said 80%. Any more? Okay, we'll go back. Oh. Sorry, I got confused. So it's only 26%. Only 26% read to their child a few times a week. So we're missing about 10% there that don't read to their children, right? So that's quite a lot. All right, so I think we have one more question. So I can't see the top of that. I can't see the top. What parents, what does that say at the top? I can't see it because of the thing. Oopsies, giveaway. Oh, so what percentage of children have an increased specific area of the brain due to good reading habits? So I think I just gave it away because I clicked the button too fast. So basically saying the more a child is read to and the more a child is exposed to books, it expands, increases different parts of their brain, right? So I want to ask you, because it was kind of a bit cheating. So 80% of children have had an increase. So that's massive. You know, so if you think about these good habits that you can make in your child of fostering, you know, good reading habits in a child, you know, you're helping them as they get older in developing different parts of their brain as well. So, okay. So how many words a year? So this is looking at, you know, when a child is a little bit older. We're not looking at, this number is not early years, but when a child is a little bit older. So how many words a year does a child learn by reading just 20 minutes a day? Yep. So how many words a year does a child learn by reading just 20 minutes a day? So we're probably looking at like teenage years, you know, preteen, kind of like, well, let's say 14 to 18 roughly. Okay, so Chigozie says 700, Irene says 1,500. Okay, any other number? So how many words a year does a child learn by reading just 20 minutes a day? All right, you're going to be shocked. 2 million. 2 million words a child can read, can learn just by reading 20 minutes a day. So, you know, you guys are definitely educators for sure. You know, creating your books and making them engaging for children is really expanding them and helping them develop. All right, so the more words they're exposed to, the greater impact on a child's language development. All right, so now we're going to look at, you know, the reason it is amazing. So now we're going to look at, you know, the reason why I'm here, how to get children to love books. So the number one way to get a child to love books is, if you want to raise a reader, you need to be a reader. You know, children, we're role models for our children. You know, this nurture versus nature, right? Children are basically mimicking us. You know, the way that we eat, the way we do the dishes, the way we dress up. They copy everything we do. So if you want to raise a reader, you need to be a reader. So all these people that are saying, you know, I would buy the book, but my child doesn't want to read. The question should be, but do you read? Are you setting examples for your child? Are you showing them the importance of books? You know, so that's a question that you could be asking them. So what are the parents doing to foster good reading habits amongst their children? So like it says here, be a role model for your child. Have books around the house, in their bedrooms, in the living room, you know, even in the hallway, you can have a little bookshelf. Let your child see you take the time to read books. Start reading to them as young as they're born. So as soon as they're newborn, you can start reading to them. It creates a bond. Foster a good reading habit among your children. That's very important. You know, a lot of the time we say, oh, but I just don't have time to pick up a book. But you know, the iPhones will give you like a report every week, and it tells you, oh, you've reduced your screen time. You've spent an average 10 hours a day on the screen. Like, how many of those 10 hours a day on your screen could you just put your phone away, turn it off, and dedicate that time to reading to your child? You know, so it's those simple little habits that will foster good habits within your child. So another way to get children to love books is books need to reflect the world around them, okay? So buy books that tell a story that your child can connect to, a story that shares their interests. Also, buy books that they can relate to. When a child can relate to a story, they'll remember it and comprehend it. Also, the most important thing, as I've said a couple of times, have shared story time. You know, having shared story time establishes that bond, builds that bond with your child, sets an example. Let yourself be a role model, and take that 10 to 15 minutes a day to set a stage for the love of books. So some ways that we kind of start in early years. So like I said, you can start as young as newborn. You know, and newborn children, you can buy those sensory books. you know, the hardback sensory books that they have. You know, sensory, we do a lot of sensory play in the school, because when a child is exposed to sensory, it opens up different parts of their brain. So starting with sensory books, you know, let them develop the love, let them start to be able to, you know, work their fine motor, their gross motor, turning a page at a time, you know, holding the book the correct way. And then moving on to picture books. So picture books are very, very important, because it starts to foster the love of books, the love of reading, but it also develops their imagination and teaches them how to understand art. Also, as well, another way you can get them to love books is book engagement. So we're always very, very theatrical. You know, when we're books in the nursery, we're very theatrical. We're using voices, we're singing, we're introducing puppets, you know, we're making it fun, engaging, interesting. And because if the children are having fun, they're more open to learning. Also, as well, you can provoke an inquisitive mind. So asking questions, you know, what do you see in the picture? Or let them comprehend the story. Ask them what they think will come next. What do you think will happen next? What do you think will happen at the end? You know, let them look at the start of the book. Oh, what will happen in this book? It's what the story is going to be about. You know, so provoking that inquisitive mind, making them intrigued by the books. Also, make it part of the routine. Children love, 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 love routine. Children flourish from routine. They learn what is expected of them. They learn what is going to happen next. It helps them, routine also helps them feel secure. It also helps develop life skills, and it helps them build healthy habits. So one routine, which I 100% stand by, is bedtime routine. Bedtime routine is so important. One, children need to go to bed at a proper time, because they need enough sleep for their brain to develop and for them to grow. However, establishing that bedtime routine. So when my daughter was young, we had a bed routine where we'll go for a bath. She'll have a bath, then we'll get her pajamas on, and then we'll sit down and we'll read a book. And then we'll sing some songs, and then she'll go to sleep. And that routine was every single night. And we never missed a beat. Not once, we never missed a beat. And I'll tell you something now. My daughter is a testimony to this talk that I'm doing today, because my daughter, I think last year, she's 17 in a couple of weeks. And last year she sent me a picture and she said, you know, Mom, she says, I've read 64 novels this year. And her novels are like, if you see my house, I have over 200 books, and all of them are hers. Mine are all educational books, but they're all hers. And even, you know, in Scotland and in Nigeria, she has her bookshelf. She loves reading. And it's apparent because she's now doing advanced hires in English. And when she writes, you know she's well read. You can tell she's well read in the way that she describes it. And all of that was fostered when she was 1, 2, 3 years old. You know, so routine is so important. I cannot say that enough. Also, develop a love for reading. Don't ever push a child. Don't ever push a child to do something they don't want to do, because it will have the opposite effect. They will not want to do it, and they will now start resistant to do it, and they'll now start developing hate for something. So don't push a child. Don't force a child to read, as they won't enjoy it. Let them do it in their own time, and make it fun and engaging. When children love to learn, they continue to grow and they continue to learn. Once you start forcing them to do something, they start pulling back. You know, so always make sure that they develop a love for reading. Now, how to grab the attention of a children. So obviously, like I said, my profession is early years, and you know, we need to foster those habits in children from the early years. So I can let you know what kind of things that we look for in a book when we're teaching the children. So from our point of view, obviously, the older they are, 7, 8, 10, 13, 17, you know, it changes, it develops, it's different. However, how to grab the attention of a child from an early years perspective. So if you want to grab the attention of a child, you need to write like a child, you need to think like a child, right? If you're writing a book for a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, you know, you can't be thinking like an adult, you know, because they're not going to enjoy it. So you need to get into that mindset of a child. Make it age appropriate. So what age group are you targeting? You know, some books stand the test of time, you know, but make it age appropriate, make it relatable. You know, we spoke about that earlier. Let them see themselves in a book and know your target audience as well. Also, for early years, rhyming words and repetition is very good, and also builds vocabulary as well. You know, the famous Gruffalo book, you know, the book is very repetitive. You know, a mouse took a stroll through the deep dark wood. A fox saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Come and have tea in my my underground house. It's frightfully nice of you, fox, but no, I'm going to have tea with a Gruffalo. A Gruffalo? What's a Gruffalo? You know, it's repetitive, and the children really love it because it's something that's very repetitive on and on throughout the story. But it's a rhyming book as well. Children love rhyming books. Also, keep it short, descriptive sentences as well. Also, clear illustration, not making it too crowded. You know, you know, like I said, the Gruffalo, Julia Donaldson, she always has, I don't know if you've noticed, she always has little things in her books that I don't know if you've noticed. Like, for example, she wrote this book about the stick man, and there's a Christmas tree. It's a Christmas book, and there's a Christmas tree, and one of the ornaments in the Christmas tree is a Gruffalo. You know, so there's these little key things in her book that you can also, you know, it's not just about reading. You can look at the picture and say, what do you see in the picture? Can you find this? Can you find that? You're building on the vocabulary as well as you're doing that. And also, you don't have to have a moral lesson. Not every book has to have a moral lesson, like, oh, we don't bully or we play nicely. It doesn't need to have a moral lesson. It can just be a really fun book to read. So, ladies, gentlemen, it doesn't matter what they read as long as they enjoy it, and that is the most important thing. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the invite, for bringing me here today. I hope you've learned something, and not just for yourself, but something that you can take to the parents that are buying your books as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
No, I just really want to say thank you, because I think from that talk, it doesn't matter if you're an author, a parent, an editor, or an illustrator, you got something from the talk. So thank you so much. And I think the breadth of your knowledge and experience working with those children, it really shines through. And you gave us the parent perspective and also the educator. Which I think is the word I'll take away from today, because I never really thought of myself as an educator. You just think, they create nice children's books, but it's true, we're teaching them. Yeah. So I have a few questions that I want to ask. So guys, we're going into the Q&A. You know, we want to say a huge thank you, you know, for all that information that you've squeezed into the we're going to have to do a lot more research, because some of those facts I think were mind-blowing for me as the parent myself. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of thinking and a lot of work to do in that area. So do we have questions? I know some of us, if you listen to that, I'm sure you have questions. So feel free, if you want to unmute yourself, you can do that, or you can put the comments in the chat, and then I'll read it out to our speaker, and then she can answer the questions that way. But I can start while I'm waiting for anybody who might have their own question. I think what I wanted to ask was, when you said think like a child, so this might be a bit of an unusual question, but I think I'm being very sneaky as an illustrator and as an author. It's very rare that you're able to really pick the brain of a teacher, and you get to, not just as a parent, I study my own children, but you get to see lots of different children in a very comfortable setting. And I'm sure then you start to notice, oh, they like this book, they don't like that book. What have you when you say think like a child when you're writing, can you give us just maybe two things that you notice that children are very drawn to? And it could be anything at all, just maybe in your experience reading to them.
So for children, it just varies. It varies so much because each child is an individual, and each child has individual interests and likes. And I think the most important thing is you can't really pinpoint it to one thing. So I think, what we do in our school is we have age appropriate books. So like for the younger children, all of our books are in beautiful book baskets, and all of them are laid nicely on the floor next to the carpet area, right? And those books are available for the children to go up and pick from anytime they want. And, through having those books available for the children, you will start to see that, they will start having a preference for those books. But we literally have like 200 books in our library in the school minimum, so it's so varied. And then we rotate them like every couple of weeks. So not only do they have books in their classrooms, we also have books. We have a learning area as well, and we have a bookshelf in there as well. And then even the older children can come to the office and look at the other bookshelves as well. So gosh, to pinpoint it into particular interest is really hard, because I've had over 1,000 children pass through me through the years, and I can't say there's a particular book that the children do like. Like I have my favorites. And I feel like sometimes I try to force my favorites on the children, and they're like, no, we don't like this one. And then they go for this really complicated one, so it's just so varied, but, definitely colorful. Rhyming, like I said, rhyming books always bring the children in, because when you have rhyming books, it allows the teacher to be a lot more theatrical. And I love being theatrical when it comes to books, when reading books. I just love being as theatrical as possible. Like I'm shouting and wailing and doing all these things. So yeah, something colorful, but definitely rhyming books from a teacher perspective is something that we really enjoy. And like I said as well, repetitive, because that repetitiveness, you can engage the children and bring them in, because every other page it's saying the same line. So what we do is we miss out a word and we get the children to start filling it in, and it gets to a point where the children are now like shouting that part of the book, and they're engaged in the story because they're now part of the story. So that for me is my favorite books that I tend to go for.
Wow, thank you for that. So that's colorful books and rhyming books. And I think something I've picked out what you said about rhyming books is even within the rhyme, there's routine. So you said a routine for bedtime. There's a loop in the book, and they loops very quickly, and they can spot anything that's an irregularity and say, well, no, that's not how it goes. I'll show you how it's supposed to be said.
Yeah.
I think that gives us obviously some. If you have a project you're working on, this is something that you can fit into your project, or at least it gives you some food for thought. Okay, is there any other are there any other questions that you want to ask? Because we have about 10 minutes for Q&A before we quickly do a feedback poll. So any questions, please feel free. You don't have to speak, unmute yourself. You can type it in the chat. If not, I can be really greedy and ask all my questions very quickly. Okay. So please feel free to type it in the chat. Okay. And then I also wanted to ask, so when you were talking about being a reader, yourself to make your child want to read. As I'm somebody who would much rather, maybe as an artist, I tend to sketch rather than read. I have a daughter who's an avid reader. I had nothing to do with that. And then I have a son who's more, his natural bent is not to read a book. He probably would be crafty or try to make something. So if as a parent you're not a reader, what would be your advice on, how to get into reading? I know you say buy a book and read it, but then are there, ways you could just groom your interest? Maybe are we buying books that are too thick and we get discouraged? What would you advise?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not a reader. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not a reader. I say, people are like, oh, when's the last time I read a book? I'm like, I don't read, I research. Like I said, all of my books are educational books, behavioral development, all of those things. They're all my books. And I research more than read, but that's where my interest comes in, and I feel like sometimes, like when I do pick up a novel, I just get so lost in it, and I'm like, I don't have the time, So however, with my daughter, like I said, I wasn't a reader, but I made sure I was a reader for her. So I was always like, okay, let's sit down and read a book, like making sure it's part of the routine, but making sure also out of those times that she did sit down and read, and setting challenges. And another thing that really helped as well is, there was one summer holiday that we went to visit, we went to Scotland and we went to visit the local library. And during the summer, they had like a reading challenge on for the children. And, it was just something silly, like, a booklet and stickers and things like that. But she was like, I'm going to do this, and I think that also helped as well. I know in Lagos, there's a couple of libraries, but there's not a lot of libraries. There's not. So I think if you have the opportunity to travel out, it's definitely worthwhile. The local libraries are free, and they're fantastic. If they have a book that you don't want, they can get the book for you. So also, visiting the books, because it's very surreal. Even going to, the bookshops like Waterstones, right? They have like a little seating area where you can sit down and read the books, or most of them have like a Costa coffee where you can get a coffee as well. So making those outings for a child as well, as much as possible, also helps foster that in a child. But then, you got to remember, we're all different level learners as well. Some are visual, some are tactile, some are audio. So if reading a book doesn't, maybe your child is an audio learner, so if reading a book doesn't help, get them the audio version of the book. With Kindle these days, you don't need to pick up a physical book. You can listen to the book as well, podcast, things like that. So learn what kind of learner your child is as well. Like I'm a tactile learner, and I didn't learn that until like, years later. Whereas my child is the opposite to me. So, just know what learning style your child has, and then adapt, like key into that as well.
Thank you. That's a great response. So find ways to create the environment that will encourage you to read, have fun while you're reading. If you're a coffee drinker, maybe getting a coffee will then motivate you to go read the book, and that's like your quiet time. And then the type of reader you are, because I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to reading. So I just believe reading is you get a physical book and you open that. But now you Audible and Spotify and all the other ways that we can listen to words is also a form of reading. And if that's what the child enjoys, then don't force them to the tactile book.
Exactly. Yeah, because remember what I said earlier is, if you force the child, they're not going to enjoy it, and you need to make it something they enjoy.
Wow. Amazing. So, I mean, once again, I can see someone said, they came late, but they still benefited. I've had,
thank you, okay.
So much that I could say. I mean, I have tons of notes here. So I think for all of us who have listened, let's use this information. Let's build on it. Let's continue to research and produce, the level of, literary content that I think will just elevate children's, reading and experience, especially in early years. So once again, I want to say a big thank you.
You're welcome.
To Mrs. Ajayi-Bembe, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and taking time to come to speak to us
Sure.
today. So yes, thank you. It is 3 minutes to the hour, and I think we can all say that it's been a worthwhile time, coming together to learn and to talk about what we all hope will be, a very thriving industry in Nigeria going forward in the years to come. So thank you again to our speaker. Thank you to all of you who have joined us, members, non-members. What I will say is, please, this month of October, as we go, please speak to somebody about ACAIN and tell them to join us, just so we can have a lot more fun. So have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you in October. Okay, thank you all. Bye, Kimberley. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.